Hi, I'm Judi Cleary, and I'm a certified dementia practitioner, a licensed assisted living administrator, and I've been doing dementia training for about 10 years. I've been working with people with dementia for over 25 years, and I'm going to be talking to you today about how the brain works and the stages of dementia. So I'm using a laptop here to give you this presentation, so you may see me referring to my notes. So in this module, we'll be talking about how the brain works and understanding the progression of dementia in the stages and the 7 stages of Alzheimer's disease. So the adult brain weighs about 3 pounds and it has a jelly-like consistency. And about 25% of the body's blood supply flows to the brain. The brain uses the nutrients and the oxygen from the blood to help the brain work. And actually, when a person is thinking really hard, the brain needs more nutrients and more oxygen from the blood to work correctly. So how the brain works. The brain has about 100 billion nerve cells, which are called neurons. And the connections between the neurons are called synapses. So what happens is the neurons talk to each other, send a signal, and the other neuron receives it in what's called a synapse. And they're electronic signals, and those electronic signals between those neurons form the basis of memories, thoughts, and feelings. Over time, our experiences create certain routes or patterns in the neuron signals. And some of these patterns are deeply ingrained or rooted, and others are built upon those base memories and experiences that we have. So this is when you can think of this image of the tree and think about the root and the vine of the tree being those initial neuron pathways that are really strong and really well rooted and grounded. And then as the tree continues to develop, those other experiences are built upon those initial experiences and memories, just as the leaves come after the vine and the branches. So when a person has Alzheimer's disease, the neurons are damaged and die. And what happens is plaques and tangles get in the way of those synapses between the neurons. And when a person is starting to show signs of cognitive loss, actually quite a bit of the brain cells have already died. The hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that creates memories out of our experiences, is one of the most severely affected by Alzheimer's disease, as you can see in the image. So I like to think of the hippocampus as the thing that stamps an experience into a memory. So I call it the memory stamper. As the brain cell death progresses, additional abilities and memories are lost. And so you can think again about that tree with the roots and the leaves. And this is when you can imagine the leaves are starting to fall from the tree. Branches are still there, the roots are still there, but the leaves are starting to fall and die. So different parts of the brain affect different functional abilities. So the occipital lobe controls vision and visual comprehension. And the parietal lobe creates spatial reasoning, perception of where we are in space, and sensations. And the frontal lobe controls emotions, problem solving, reasoning, and decision making. The temporal lobe, it controls learning, memory, language, the ability to understand and communicate with others. The cerebellum controls posture, balance, and coordination, and the brainstem itself controls the automatic responses such as breathing, sleeping, swallowing. Now we're going to think about dementia progression in stages. So first, there's mild cognitive impairment, which is when the brain isn't functioning optimally, but the person with mild cognitive impairment can still function well, and mild cognitive impairment is not considered to be dementia. Dementia progression, the early stages, is when someone begins to show symptoms that are noticeable to others. People know that something is wrong. Sometimes the person with dementia knows something is wrong but tries to compensate for those losses and also tries to hide the memory loss from others. A person who's in the early stages might start to become very stuck in her ways, need really rigid patterns, and stop socializing as much. The middle stages is a time when someone requires more assistance from others, and also behavior and personality begins to change. Safety awareness is diminished. The person might not dress appropriately without assistance and will need help with maintaining hygiene. In the late stages, the person cannot survive without assistance from someone else. A person would need 24-hour-a-day supervision for safety and for care, and basic functions are either impossible or very difficult for a person to complete. Now, for an Alzheimer's type dementia, we're going to use a scale that was developed by Dr. Barry Reisberg, which is called the 7 stages, which is going to be also compared to those 3 stages, the early, middle, and late, which we're also going to call mild dementia, moderate dementia, and severe dementia. So stage 1, 2, and 3 would be considered the earlier stages of mild dementia. Stage 1, there's no impairment. There is cell damage occurring, but no one would be able to tell. In stage 2, there's a very mild decline, but it would look like a typical aging decline. And stage 3 would be when someone's just having difficulty with complicated tasks. So someone might start having difficulty balancing a checkbook or doing things that are pretty complicated. Other than that, they're still able to care for themselves and do well. In stage 1, as I said, the cell damage is occurring, but no one can tell. Stage 3, the person is really starting to make excuses for their memory loss as well. In the moderate dementia or the middle stages, that would be when stage 4 of the Reisberg scale, which is moderate decline, steps in, which is when someone really needs help from others but can still perform most of their daily tasks independently with just a little bit of help and cueing. Stage 5, which is considered to be moderately severe decline, would be when someone needs help with daily tasks and activities and also is having gaps in their memory and times when they're able to think pretty clearly and other times when they're not thinking very well. In stage 4, the person can still do personal care tasks, but is becoming more rigid about routines and times, and patterns are really important. In stage 5, the person is starting to have difficulty following all the steps to complete tasks. They like to be busy, but they're not sure what to do, and they're embarrassed about their cognitive loss. Severe dementia, which would be called the late stages, includes stage 6, which is severe decline. A person will have notable personality and behavior changes, physical changes, and inability to perform their own care. And stage 7 is very severe decline and is the last stage. There's loss of verbal abilities, loss of continence, inability to eat appropriately, and respond to the environment. In stage 6, this person would like to touch things, gather things, has trouble finding words, has trouble using devices such as utensils or a toothbrush, and is unable to control impulses. This person would just do what feels good and not be able to control those impulses. A person in stage 6 has difficulty with relating to others. They might still be able to walk, but this is when someone is starting to lose a lot of weight. And in stage 7, this is when a person has reflexive behavior. There's a lot of noise making, a lot of movement of the mouth because it just feels good, and rocking back and forth, making sounds that feel good. And As I said, Alzheimer's is a terminal disease, so once someone has made it to stage 7, this is the last stage, and this is the progression after this would be death. And this is an overview of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Thank you.